You say you want to learn fast. English, coding, music, anything. But your brain feels tired, slow, and full of distractions. You think you are not smart enough, but that is not true. The problem is not your brain. It is your method. In this story, you will learn how to train your mind and master any skill faster than you ever imagined. Imagine a person sitting at a desk covered with books, notebooks, and videos. They want to learn everything: English, business, design, and maybe even guitar. They open one video, take a few notes, then jump to another. After a few days, they feel exhausted and lost. Their effort is real, but their direction is missing. This is how most people fail to learn fast. Not because they are lazy, but because they never decide what they truly want to learn. Learning begins with clarity. Your brain works like a GPS system. It can only lead you to your destination if you tell it where to go. If your goal is blurry, your brain will wander aimlessly, wasting energy on distractions. But when you give it a clear direction, it starts noticing opportunities, ideas, and patterns that align with your goal. This happens because of a powerful system inside your brain called the reticular activating system, or RAS. Think of it as your brain's filter of attention. When you decide on something specific, your RAS starts scanning the world for anything related to it. For example, when you buy a red car, you suddenly see red cars everywhere. They were always there, but now your brain notices them. The same happens with learning. Clarity activates your focus. Let us make this simple. Saying, "I want to learn English," is too big and too vague. It is like typing "somewhere nice" into your GPS. It cannot take you there. Instead, give your brain a precise destination. I want to introduce myself in English confidently in 60 seconds after 30 days. Suddenly, your mind starts asking the right questions. What words do I need? How do I practice pronunciation? Which phrases sound natural? You become an active learner, not a wandering one. Here is a simple daily practice. Every morning, repeat your learning goal out loud in English. For example, I want to speak clearly. I can understand native speakers. I am improving every day. These small sentences train both your focus and your belief. You are programming your RAS with purpose. Your vocabulary for this part: goal, purpose, focus, decide, achieve. Each word is a key. Goal gives you direction. Purpose gives you energy. Focus gives you discipline. Decide gives you commitment. Achieve gives you victory. The takeaway is clear. The faster you define your goal, the faster you move toward it. Do not try to learn everything. Choose one clear target. When your direction is sharp, your progress becomes unstoppable. Imagine a giant tree standing tall under the sunlight. Its roots run deep into the soil, its trunk rises strong, its branches spread wide, and its leaves dance in the wind. That tree is like every skill you want to master. But most people make the same mistake. They try to climb the whole tree in one day. They want to reach the top without first growing their roots. And then, when the storm of confusion comes, they fall. Learning anything fast begins when you break the skill down, piece by piece, like a tree. The roots are the basics, the foundation that keeps everything stable. For English, your roots are vocabulary, the words that give meaning to your thoughts. The trunk is sentence structure, how those words connect and carry weight. The branches are topics, like travel, work, or daily conversations. And the leaves? They are the style, your intonation, your rhythm, your confidence when you speak. You cannot grow all parts at once. You must start small. Learn to plant the seed, not climb the tree. Many learners fail because they chase too much. They want to speak fluently, understand movies, and write essays all at once. But progress comes from focus, not from speed. You grow stronger when you build each layer with care. Here is how you can do it. Start with one branch. Choose a small, clear area to master. For example, say to yourself, "Today I will learn 10 useful verbs." That is enough. You are not wasting time. You are building your roots. Tomorrow, use those verbs in 5 short sentences. The next day, speak them out loud. Step by step, the branches of your English will grow naturally. If you are learning English for real communication, focus on one topic at a time. Maybe this week you learn how to introduce yourself. Next week, focus on restaurant English. The week after, practice how to ask for directions. Each topic is a branch that supports your overall growth. Soon, your English tree will bloom with confidence. Breaking a skill into smaller parts helps your brain feel safe. It stops fear and builds clarity. You can see your progress, measure your effort, and celebrate small victories. The more you deconstruct, the more control you have over your learning. Your vocabulary for this part: root, branch, trunk, leaf, growth. Remember, even the tallest trees were once small seeds that grew one root at a time. The takeaway: do not try to climb the whole tree. Start from one branch, build your roots, and let progress grow upward, slow, steady, and strong. Imagine 2 kinds of learners sitting side by side. One repeats every word like a parrot. The other pauses, asks questions, and tries to understand how things work. Both seem to be learning, but only one will grow into a master. The parrot remembers. The scientist understands. And when it comes to learning fast, understanding always wins. Copying is easy. It feels productive. You repeat what someone else says, you write down notes, and you feel busy. But imitation has limits. The moment something changes, you freeze, because you never truly understood the logic behind it. Thinking like a scientist, on the other hand, gives you independence. You do not depend on memorization. You build from truth, not from habit. This is where a powerful idea comes in: first principles thinking. It means breaking down what you are learning into its most basic truths, then building back up from there. Instead of asking, "What should I do?" you ask, "Why does this work?" That one question transforms you from a passive learner into an active thinker. Take English grammar as an example. Many students try to memorize rules: add s for third person, use ed for the past. They repeat these patterns without knowing why. But if you think like a scientist, you ask deeper questions. Why do subjects and verbs have to agree? Why do tenses exist? The answer is not about grammar. It is about meaning. The brain understands patterns, not chaos. Grammar simply helps listeners follow your thoughts clearly. Once you understand that, every rule becomes logical, not mechanical. This kind of thinking is what made Elon Musk famous for solving impossible problems. When he started building rockets, he did not copy how others did it. He broke everything down into first principles. What materials are needed, what physics make it fly, what can be improved. He ignored assumptions and rebuilt knowledge from the ground up. That is how he created reusable rockets while others said it could not be done. For English learners, the lesson is simple. Do not only copy phrases you hear. Ask why they work. When you hear, "I am going to the store," notice the pattern: subject plus be plus verb ing plus destination. Try to rebuild that logic in other ways. She is going to work. They are going to school. Once you understand the structure, you can create endless sentences. Here is a short practice. Pick one sentence today and rebuild it from logic. Ask yourself, who is doing the action? What is the action? When is it happening? Why does this structure make sense? The vocabulary for this part: logic, pattern, reason, question, principle. The takeaway: learning fast is not about copying faster. It is about thinking deeper. Stop being the parrot. Become the scientist. Picture a learner sitting in front of a glowing screen. He watches English videos for hours, nodding along, whispering a few words, and feeling inspired. Day after day, he absorbs lesson after lesson. But when he finally tries to speak, his mouth freezes. His brain knows, but his tongue does not move. It is like studying swimming on YouTube and expecting to float when you touch the water. The truth is simple but often ignored. Watching feeds your mind, but doing transforms it. Passive learning gives you information. Active learning builds skill. Just like muscles grow only when they move, your brain strengthens when it acts. You cannot think your way into fluency. You must practice your way into it. There is a saying worth remembering: motivation starts the engine, but practice drives the car. Watching English videos, reading textbooks, or listening to podcasts are good ways to start your engine. But if you never shift into drive, you will stay parked in the same place forever. That is why you need the 2x rule. Spend twice as much time doing as watching. If you watch a 30-minute English video, spend 60 minutes practicing what you learned. Repeat the sentences out loud. Write them down. Use them in a new conversation. That is how you turn ideas into instincts. Science agrees. When you practice actively, you activate what neuroscientists call procedural memory, the system in your brain that stores physical and verbal skills. It is the reason you can ride a bike without thinking or play a song without reading the notes. The same applies to language. The more you use English, the more your brain wires it into your muscle memory. Here is a simple formula for daily training. Listen 10 minutes, repeat aloud 10 minutes, write what you heard 10 minutes. That is 30 minutes of pure progress. No teacher, no class, no waiting. Just you and your commitment. Remember, the greatest learners in history did not just study theories. Artists paint, musicians play, athletes train. Every master learns through movement. They do not wait for perfect conditions or perfect motivation. They simply show up and do. For English learners, action is the real classroom. When you speak, you train your tongue. When you write, you train your logic. When you listen, you sharpen your ear. And when you repeat, again and again, your confidence starts to bloom like a muscle finally finding its rhythm. Your vocabulary for this part: action, repeat, build, practice, progress, memory. The takeaway: watching makes you know. Doing makes you grow. Knowledge becomes power only when you move. People often say you need 10,000 hours to become great at something. That number sounds powerful, but it also sounds terrifying. 10,000 hours feels like a mountain so high that most people never take the first step. But here is the secret that most never hear: you do not need 10,000 hours to begin. You only need 20. 20 hours of focused, deliberate practice can take you from zero to capable. It is not enough to make you a master, but it is enough to build momentum, confidence, and real skill. Those first 20 hours are the spark that starts the engine of mastery. The key is deliberate practice. It is not about doing more. It is about doing better. Deliberate practice means training with intention. It is focused, feedback-driven, and slightly uncomfortable, the perfect recipe for growth. If you always feel relaxed while learning, you are not improving. True progress begins when you step into challenge, not comfort. Imagine a learner who decides to practice English speaking for 45 minutes each day for 1 month. At first, every sentence feels heavy. Every pause feels endless. But by the 7th day, the tongue starts to flow. By the 15th, confidence grows. By the 30th, the same learner who once whispered now speaks clearly and calmly. The difference was not talent. It was deliberate effort applied with consistency. To guide this process, use what scientists call the Goldilocks zone. Not too easy, not too hard, but just right for growth. If the task is too simple, your brain gets bored. If it is too hard, you get frustrated. The sweet spot is challenge that stretches you slightly beyond your comfort zone. That is where learning happens fastest. Here is your mini action plan. Spend 45 minutes a day in deliberate learning for 30 days. Break it down like this: 15 minutes reviewing what you learned yesterday. 15 minutes of new focused practice. 15 minutes of feedback and correction. For English learners, this can be powerful. Record your voice while speaking. Listen again the next day. Find one mistake and fix it. Repeat daily. That is how you turn errors into progress. You do not need a classroom. You need awareness and correction. Over time, your pronunciation, rhythm, and confidence will transform. The first 20 hours decide your direction. If you push through them, you cross from theory to reality. Many people quit in this stage because progress feels invisible. But remember, the first 20 hours are not about perfection. They are about creating the habit of learning itself. Once that habit exists, improvement becomes automatic. Your vocabulary for this part: deliberate, focus, feedback, growth, challenge, progress. The takeaway: you do not need endless time to start. You need courage, structure, and 20 focused hours. Once you finish those first 20, you are no longer a beginner. You are a learner in motion. And motion, not motivation, is what builds mastery. A young pianist sits before the same old piano. Every morning, she plays the same scales again and again. Her fingers stumble, then glide, then finally dance. To anyone watching, it looks boring. But inside her brain, something extraordinary is happening. Invisible threads of connection are thickening, wrapping around neurons like vines around a trellis. This is the quiet magic of repetition. Repetition is not punishment. It is the architect of mastery. Every time you repeat a skill, speaking a phrase, typing a word, striking a note, your brain builds insulation around its neural pathways. Scientists call this myelination. Myelin acts like a speed booster for your brain, helping signals travel faster and more efficiently. The more you repeat, the smoother the path becomes, until your skill feels effortless. Think of repetition as watering a plant. The first few days, nothing seems to happen. You might even wonder if the seed is dead. But underground, roots are forming, preparing for the bloom. Mastery works the same way. Growth hides before it shines. You must trust the unseen process. That is why falling in love with repetition is not optional. It is essential. Most people quit because they mistake boredom for failure. The truth is, boredom is a signal that your brain is starting to automate. It is the threshold between learning and mastery. Stay with it. The magic happens after the 100th try, not the 10th. Now let's add the second part of this secret, connection. Learning is not just about repetition. It is about linking ideas together, turning your knowledge into a web instead of a pile. Imagine your mind as a city of lights. Every new idea is a bulb, but without wires, it stays dark. Brain anchors are those wires. They connect the new to the known. When you link a new idea to something familiar, your memory strengthens tenfold. For example, think of compound interest as planting a tree. At first, growth is slow, but one day the fruit multiplies on its own. Or think of grammar rules as traffic laws. They keep the language flowing smoothly. The stronger your associations, the deeper your understanding. For English learners, this method changes everything. When you learn a new word, do not just memorize it, connect it. If you learn the word remember, link it to a personal story, a smell, or an emotion. Remember could connect to the smell of your grandmother's kitchen or the song that reminds you of a summer evening. The more senses you engage, the more permanent the learning becomes. Try this mini practice. Choose 5 new English words. For each one, create a small story in your mind. Example: journey. Imagine yourself packing a bag for a trip. Whisper. Think of someone telling you a secret. These little stories turn vocabulary into experiences. Repetition and connection are the 2 engines of fast learning. Repetition builds the road. Connection lights it up. One gives strength, the other gives meaning. Together, they create unstoppable progress. Your vocabulary for this part: repetition, connection, anchor, pattern, memory, growth. The takeaway: mastery does not come from doing something once perfectly. It comes from doing it 1,000 times with purpose. Slow repetition creates fast results. When you link your learning to life, the ordinary becomes unforgettable. Imagine a scientist in a quiet lab, surrounded by notes, charts, and curious questions. She is not guessing, she is measuring. Every day she tracks progress, adjusts experiments, and learns what works. That is the same mindset you need to master any skill. Not just learning but becoming a learner. Most people drift through learning like travelers without a map. They study hard, yet they never know if they are getting closer to their goal. But when you measure your progress, you turn learning into an experiment. The simple truth is this: what gets measured gets improved. Start small. Keep a notebook or a simple tracker. Each day, write down 3 things. 1 time spent learning. 2 what you practiced or studied. 3 one insight or mistake you discovered. This small ritual turns invisible progress into visible proof. When you see your growth on paper, even tiny steps become motivation. Your notebook becomes a mirror showing that your effort is working. Now take it 1 step further. Teach what you learn. It may sound strange, but teaching is the fastest way to understand. When you explain an idea aloud, your brain must organize it, simplify it, and fill in the gaps. This forces deeper comprehension. The Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman used this technique for every subject he studied. He believed that if you could explain something clearly to a 12-year-old, you truly understood it. That is now called the Feynman technique. It turns learning into creation. For English learners, this approach is a secret weapon. After every study session, explain something out loud, maybe a grammar rule, a phrase, or a short story. Record yourself for 30 seconds. Do not worry about mistakes. They are signals of growth. When you listen again, you will notice errors, fix them, and your progress will double. This practice turns passive learning into active ownership. You stop being a student who consumes and start becoming a teacher who creates. You transform from someone trying to remember words into someone who uses them to teach others. As you track your hours and teach your lessons, you will notice something beautiful. Learning stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like evolution. The skill becomes part of your identity. You no longer ask, "Can I do this?" because you already are doing it. Remember this closing truth: discipline builds skill. Skill builds confidence. Confidence builds freedom. Every repetition, every note in your tracker, every short explanation, they are steps toward independence. So return to where this journey began. You do not need to be a genius. You do not need perfect conditions. You only need a clear system, steady tracking, and the courage to teach what you learn. That is how learners become masters, and that is how you will learn anything fast.